I'm Michael, and welcome to Beyond the Screenplay, the podcast where each episode we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Today we are talking about Disclosure Day, the 2026 film, screenplay by David Koepp, story by Steven Spielberg, directed by Steven Spielberg. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Rand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner. And Alex Calleros.
Hi.
Okay. All right. So we're here. We're going to talk about Disclosure Day, the latest Spielberg alien movie. And then over on Patreon, we're going to do a little follow-up casual, less focused just on Disclosure Day and more generally about Spielberg and aliens and this kind of storytelling. We all watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind before recording this, and so that's going to frame some of that discussion over on Patreon, because this movie feels like it is very much in conversation with Close Encounters of the Third Kind and the sort of Spielberg library of alien stuff. So we'll dig into that more deeply over there. But so we're going to start with just Disclosure Day. So I'm going to preface this by saying Spielberg's made some of the best movies of all time, right? Utter respect for Spielberg. And not everyone hits everything. That's fine. But just he's made good. People did good work in this movie. A lot of effort went into it. I celebrate all the creatives that tried really hard. My subjective experience watching this was that it was one of the worst movies I've seen in a very, very long time.
Wow.
And I could not believe what I was seeing. And I was almost embarrassed for some of the people involved. So I had a very strong negative reaction to this movie. I imagine that is not shared across the board, so I'm excited to hear more about that. But I feel like there were just some very strange script decisions. Characters come in and out of the movie kind of at weird times that don't seem like they're really doing anything for the plot. I feel like there is sort of some thematic elements that get shoved in. There's no absence of ideas in this movie, but I don't feel like they coalesced into something that was meaningful or super cohesive for me. I feel like the performances were great. Emily Blunt's back, I'm sure, hurt because she was carrying this movie on it the entire way. And so, there are lots of little good things in this movie, but I feel like there were a lot of things that I really bumped on, some of which I think are objective problems, and a lot of it is, I think, my own baggage with Spielberg at this point and his sort of approach to filmmaking and the tonal complexities and contradictions that I'm feeling when watching it. This is the team that brought us Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it very much felt like it to me. Anyway, so I had some issues, but I'm curious to hear what you guys thought. Alex, what did you think of Disclosure Day?
Well, I was sitting a row behind you, so I wasn't next to you to feel the rage coming off of you, and so I was kept pure in my viewing of it.
I was right next to him, hearing him laugh at the things that were funny, and then eventually starting to laugh at the things that weren't funny as the movie went on.
I was trying to censor myself for you, Brian, and my ability to do so failed pretty quickly. My apologies.
Yeah, I mean, I went into this movie with kind of no expectations because I had seen the trailers and there were a lot of kind of images in the trailers, a lot of CG animals, a lot of CG animals for what I thought was a UFO movie. And so yeah, I feel like there's a whole generation of amazing filmmakers, Spielberg included, Scorsese. I don't count on their later stage movies as being a guaranteed home run. And that's okay. I think people evolve and change. And I mean, I am already tired in my late 30s. I can't imagine being twice my age and directing a Hollywood blockbuster. That sounds so exhausting. And I think there's an energy you have when you're younger and you're making Jaws and you're this 27-year-old amazing kid who's just pouring everything into this thing. That's a different stage of life than Spielberg is in right now. And I think that's just going to naturally come across on the screen. So all this to say, I wasn't expecting Jurassic Park Spielberg to show up for Disclosure Day. And I do have, I think, a bias towards cheering for the movie because I want more UFO movies. I want more alien movies. I love this topic. I love sci-fi. I'm surprised we haven't had more good kind of government thriller movies about this topic, especially given the last several years where the government has been releasing more and more declassified information about UAPs. And just like there are a lot of weird, unexplained phenomenon that have been recorded. And there hasn't been like a good movie about it. And so I was open to this being not a great movie, but at least we got something about this topic and that could be fun. It was really interesting seeing what Spielberg chose to focus on in this movie and his approach to this topic. And yeah, just the way into it was so surprising and so strange in so many ways. I have a friend who's really into the UFO stuff, and he was saying it almost to him seems like Spielberg is like one of those people. Like he is so deep into the lore of UFO and disclosure that he's coming at it through that community's lens, which has gotten almost esoteric and like spiritual. And it's not even about like the aliens and the science of it all as much as like this more spiritual thing that's happening. I don't know enough about it to speak to it, but I could sense that in this movie that he's reaching for these kind of higher spiritual themes through this topic, which is kind of also maybe where a lot of that community actually is at this point. Anyway, so all that is to say, as a straightforward movie, yes, Michael, I understand why you were laughing. There were some ridiculous plot machinations and get out of jail free cards throughout the movie. Didn't make any sense. But I did like the devices the movie did lean into, like the kind of precog Emily Blunt of it all. You know, somebody was saying it's a very Minority Report to have this kind of person out in the world who's predicting things and knows exactly what's going on with you, and that's always fun. And I do think for one of the themes of this movie is empathy. I thought having that embodied in a character who's been given this empathetic power by the higher beings, that was a cool approach to like what an abduction does to you. You know, usually it's like I got experimented on or like violated. And this was a really interesting alternative of like, what if the aliens are here to give us empathy? And which, in our times is a lovely message. So I admire the film for Spielberg kind of putting his heart in his sleeve, kind of like you're saying, Michael, being willing to almost embarrass himself in his like true believer UFO like community member. And so it feels like this kind of pure expression as somebody who's like a part of that world, which is a little embarrassing to do publicly. And so I kind of have a soft spot for it in that way. And I'm not angry about it.
Cool. Good. Trisha, what were your thoughts?
I had fun. I was not in the theater with you guys. You guys went to a different screening than me. My partner and I got to go out and have a date night away from our children, and we had a great time. So
10 out of 10.
Yeah, I have no complaints. No, I mean, it's really interesting. I was getting the sense that you were, Alex, about Spielberg being a true believer. And then when I rewatched Close Encounters, I was like, oh, you really are this guy, I think, actually, like in your soul, maybe. Which is, yeah, like, I don't know, kind of a strange idea to reckon with. From, I don't know, just like anthropological standpoint of like, what if one of our most iconic and most culturally influential filmmakers is like actually a UFO guy deep, deep, deep down, and that's fine. It's totally fine to be that. I think it's interesting, the blurring of like what is narrative, what is meta narrative, what is earnest. I think it's all really fascinating, and we can talk about it. I think overall, the construction of the movie is odd, but the characters, I found myself really hooked into their journey. I think it's really kind of just a chase movie in some ways. It becomes one of these they've talked about Spielberg's Running Man movies, which Minority Report is one of those. And then Catch Me If You Can is another. And actually AI is kind of one of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of a series of escapes from government entities. And overall, I liked a lot of those set pieces when we were in them. I was having a good time watching them try to get it not rammed into a moving train and that kind of thing. I was enjoying watching Josh O'Connor going, what am I doing? What am I doing? Driving back into the dumbest thing that he could possibly be doing. And yeah, and I like Josh O'Connor a lot. I really like him as an actor, and Emily Blunt is great in this. And so, yeah, I was like, I just like looking at their faces generally. And so I had fun. I agree that there are sort of narrative problems, but they don't bother me as much as they do in other movies by other directors, mainly because I think I have different expectations of Steven Spielberg. So it's, I think, not reasonable to ask an audience to come in with with like a total blank slate and experience this movie the same way that we would by a younger, director or one that we're not as familiar with or doesn't have as much of a storied and again influential filmography. And so I think I just had a little bit more patience for it and was inclined to like it and had fun. I think critics are run the gamut on this movie, and so I think we might all find ourselves like, we're not alone. Whatever your opinion on this movie is, you are not alone. Critics have absolutely are all over the spectrum. Some of them really,
and general
really
audiences too.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. I don't find my reaction to be that strong. I think I'm somewhere ultimately in the middle of like, yeah, okay. And the ones that are really negative, which I'm so curious to hear why this enrages you, Michael, but the ones puzzle me. Having that strong of a reaction. Also, having a really strong positive reaction is also a little confusing to me. But okay. So we're all here. Here's disclosure day. Let's get into it. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, we will get into it. But first, I want to hear Brian, because I couldn't read you in the theater. What did you make of this, Brian?
I mean, I couldn't, unfortunately, the word that comes to mind when I think of this movie is forgettable. Like I couldn't, I didn't have much to read. I think, I was looking forward to Spielberg going back to these kind of roots, and I didn't have high expectations for the movie, but I was just hoping for like a solid Spielberg movie, and instead, I got something that just didn't really click with me while I was watching it, didn't click with me afterwards. I still maintain that Spielberg cloned himself in 2005, which is the only way he could make the Terminal War of the Worlds in Munich all together. And the War of the World, like the Multiplicity clone, the second one down, he went on and made Crystal Skull and Ready Player One and whatever. But then the other one made like The Post and The Fableman, like one of them is like trying to still make like really serious movies. The other one is just kind of like, I don't know, what if there's another train coming, like whatever.
It's like when you compress a JPEG multiple times, there's like generation loss, the quality gets,
right, exactly. Or Michael Keaton in Multiplicity, which was what I was going for there. But yeah, so this unfortunately was made by the wrong one. And yeah, I kept thinking, I was like waiting for the movie to be about something, and it feels like I think one of you guys just said it, like there are a lot of ideas here, but I don't feel like the movie is saying much about any of them. There's like the one little scene in the house where Josh O'Connor's talking
the theme scene.
Right, the theme scene, and it's like a couple sentences where she's like, "Why do you get to decide who?" And he's like, "Well, people have a right to information." I'm like, "Great, that's an interesting topic for a movie about disclosure." And then it's like, what if it's just a bunch of guys in black cars chasing you forever? Like that's like so much about the. Go ahead.
I thought you were talking about the other theme scene. Where finally,
there's more than one.
Where, finally Colin Firth sits down and
right.
They are like in the other house, the set of a house, and they start arguing about
Domingo.
it.
Right. Yeah, I did feel like there were these little moments where that felt like the movie was about to say what it was really about, and then that never really went anywhere. And then the finale to me felt like this was not a finale the movie was building towards. I mean, it was in the sense of like they did the thing they achieved the goal that they were after, but it didn't have like the big payoff that I wanted it to, of like, oh my gosh, like this thing, now that this thing has happened, X effect happened, and like that is what we were all here for. But instead it's like people are on their phones. I guess war is canceled. We're gonna have like an anchor just like tell the whole story, which is an interesting idea. And then like Grandpa Alien's going to come up and say, listen, and I'm going to be like, that's the end of you. That's what, Close Encounters, like the ending of that movie is like, yeah, that's what the entire movie has been very clearly building towards the entire time. And yeah, so I mean, I think that was my biggest there's also just like the movie on the surface, which I thought was pretty messy a lot of the time in terms of just like the directing, the CG. People who talk about things disagree on what the thing they're actually talking about is, right? So there are people saying like, "Oh, this movie is real bad," and like they're talking about like sitting and watching the movie a lot of the time. They're not talking about, "Oh, this theme wasn't supported by this" or whatever. They're just saying like, the part of my brain that says, is the thing I'm looking at good, said no. You know what I mean? Like, which is just, there's nothing wrong with that. That's like how most of us watch movies, especially the first time. Even if you are someone who wants to dive into these things the first time, you're just like, does this feel like a good movie to me? And then there are people who, the sort of, oh, you just didn't get it crew, right? Where some of them are talking about the thematic kind of topics, like the sort of bird's eye view, like, oh, like, why are the characters American? That's an interesting thing. And like, how about this? And this thing happened, and that's kind of interesting, which that's cool. Like, I'm here for people who want to make long, essays about a movie's topics. I'm not going to read them necessarily, but I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad people care about this stuff. But then there's the next level down of like, yes, but what is the movie actually saying about those topics? And I think it was like, I saw the topics were there, but I didn't get much about what were actually being said about those topics. So I felt like movie stuff, theme stuff, in between the sort of like, here are the ideas we're wrestling with. I'm like, that's cool. If I just wish I got that movie.
Yeah. I feel similar. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. As you were talking, Brian, you're making me remember something I was thinking about walking out of the movie or soon afterwards, which was, so you have these themes of truth and people deserve truth. You have the themes of empathy. The aliens are kind of here to show us empathy. And that's, they're kind of modeling that for us or something.
I'm not superpower
sure.
They give Emily Blunt's character. Her
Sure.
name is Margaret.
Yeah. They can give somebody empathy like that. My solution for the ending, I'm already jumping to that, is essentially like, the thing that they did in the movie is kind of outdated. The idea of showing a news broadcast, first of all, like live news, like live TV.
I was thinking about that.
Nobody's watching that. Going to the different like syndicated networks. Also,
I was like, where's the moment where like someone on their phone gets a thing and then everyone else is like, wait, what? And then everyone has to like go on their phone to wherever they would access this stuff, like, right? Instead, YouTube, everyone just like already has like live news on their phone or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem like I understood like the information age we're living in. It also relies on video evidence, which is now less trusted than ever. Everything's fake. Everything's AI. I think even when they were making this movie, they knew that because somebody like on their computer screen like runs it through an AI checker.
Feels like they inserted that. Like they made this movie like 2 years ago, and then they're like, oh man, we got to get the scene in like quick.
Yeah,
they'll check it for AI.
And when like your visual effects aren't even that good, then it looks really fake. And so it's like, of course that's AI. So it was
Aliens
just a very strange
walk at a fun
yeah. Like and once again, I bet some of that weirdness and some of that uncanniness is based off of real alleged footage. I think there's a lot of stuff here that is weird in a way where it's like, why would you make that choice? It probably is for a reason if you're once again in that community. But I think the more effective way to go here would be Emily Blunt's been given the superpower. She has a magic stick. And maybe she needs to get somewhere where she is like amplified or the magic stick is amplified. And disclosure is not done through, we have a bunch of like old videos we're going to broadcast, but actually everybody in the world for like 2 minutes gets like a download from Emily Blunt of like the
like a
truth,
supernatural experience.
like the truth and the empathy. It's like everybody in the world has like a spiritual experience simultaneously where they both like download the truth and feel like this brief moment of like complete empathy. Like, I think that's where the movie feels like it's leading
100%.
towards. You know, like,
Yeah.
that's the two themes. That's the thing she's embodying. Like, everybody feels that. And now they're, like, ready to even, like, process the idea of aliens. And now we can, like, move forward. You know, like, that, I think, is more what I was hoping it was all going towards. And then it was this kind of letdown of, here's the videos. And, like, who would believe this, actually? And they don't look very real. So, yeah, it felt like it was a decade too late for this ending.
Yeah.
At least.
And I will just say at the outset that one of the things that even I was reading reviews of it today, and even critics who liked it, have been like, okay, so the alien design is not designed. The alien design, they just gave up and did the little green men and I think even if I understand why that was the choice, right? Because the whole point is that it's been true all along. Right.
Same
So
with every Roswell like video you've seen, every
Right.
like autopsy video has been true.
Right. It's been true all along. And so they have to essentially look the way that they've always been portrayed in sort of like pop culture, that this has been, none of it was faked. All of it was real. That's how they actually look, everybody. I get that. But also for your big drama, science fiction, drama, it is just a wild situation where you're like, I'm expecting to see something that's going to evoke wonder, right? And this, which I don't know, it's just like hard to wrap your mind around seeing that. And then not only that, it's like, I get, okay, maybe when we're looking at the footage on Daniel's computer that he stole from whatever. It's like, okay, they look like that. We're going to just leave that here, audience, and we're going to move on. But then to have a reveal at the end where it's almost like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, where it's like, but there is a reveal of a real alien in the room. It's like, I've been looking at this the whole movie.
Yeah,
So,
why was there that big
I guess this one's
finale
really old. Yeah.
wheeling him out? Yeah. And why is he now just coming forth at this moment? I guess he's there to whisper a message to Emily Blunt to deliver to the world at that moment when they're all paying attention, and we
whisper a
don't know
message
what
to Josh
that is.
O'Connor, who then whispers to Emily Blunt.
Translation.
Yeah.
Which is like
it's
cool.
puzzling.
I mean, there's something cool about like aiming for an ending where like all the chess pieces have been put into place for the aliens to deliver us a message, and we don't get to find out what that message is kind of a fun ending for if the movie's built to that. If the dramatic question of the movie is what is their message, or I don't know, there could be something interesting there where it's like, we're gonna finally learn their intentions. What do you think it is, audience, based on all the things you've learned? But that's not the movie that we got.
Right. Yeah.
We also have Colin Firth being like, I give up.
Well, yeah, that's also part of the ending where the guys just walk out of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think I was not angry at this movie. I feel like, I want to clarify that. I was mostly just like,
you are now.
Bored.
Like.
Well, so I think what
he was embarrassed.
Am frustrated with and maybe want to like detangle a little bit is like the Spielberg baggage of it, because I feel like a lot of what we're saying is like essentially bonus points for Spielberg, bonus points for aiming at things that we don't give bonus points to like other movies for, that we're maybe aiming for things but also missed wildly. And I think that's just, it's really, for some reason, it's just been on my mind since watching this, is that like it's really brought this into the forefront with like Spielberg and me, of like why still the bonus points. And the sort of like the frustrating part of that is seeing some Spielbergisms that just like don't work anymore. And like directorial choice, like opening on a shot of like a wrestler stomping your face was a really bold choice.
It was also like very like real and modern feeling, and then the movie didn't feel like that shot, that introductory shot felt.
Right. Yeah. And then we're back to there's Josh O'Connor and there's like blue lights through smoke, and it's like, oh, okay, we're Spielberg. There's like, the Spielberg oneer that I feel like now everyone has to like talk about and he has to do, and like creative shots where Emily Blunt is like, I'm holding my head like this so that what's his name can come and put his head in between, and it's like a frame between a frame, and like, why is this? No one would ever behave like this. It just feels very staged in a way that's
Yeah.
like very frustrating. And I think
I was thinking the other day just about the Minority Report shot where they're bringing the headset in to like put on the guy in the opening scene,
Mhm.
but the camera has to stay where the headset is like framing his head the whole time, and it just feels like they're trying so hard to get this shot that now I'm thinking about that instead of the actual story being told. So sorry.
yeah, and so like that weird shot. Yeah, Coleman Domingo's head is like in between Emily Blunt's arm, and just all these like weird things and I think part of the frustration is not just at Spielberg, but also at like the world and filmmaking language, where like I think all of that was cool at some point. I'm sort of sad that I'm not affected by it. And what you were saying, Trisha, about like wonder, like I feel like Spielberg, in my memory as a kid, his movies created that wonder. And I feel like it's weird that the same techniques now do not engender that wonder anymore. And part of it, I think, is me just getting older. But I think it's also watching filmmaking change. Like Arrival
Yeah.
is 10 years old now, but I feel like Arrival is a movie that did make me like wonder and want to know and marvel at these aliens and like truly like activated that part of my imagination. And it's a totally different style of filmmaking than the Spielberg style of filmmaking. And so kind of just want to put that out there, and we can dive into this more when we talk about Close Encounters too. But I feel like what's interesting to me about Disclosure Day is it does feel like it is from a different era subject matter, but largely just like filmmaking language. And it's so interesting to see something in that language today and not have it hit the way it would have 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think that's why I mentioned age, honestly, at the beginning of this conversation, because I do see there's a lot of great filmmakers that keep making movies, into their 70s, 80s. And, at a certain point, they're just doing their thing. But there's a whole new generation of filmmakers that has pushed the medium forward, but they're still doing their thing, and they are venerated for good reason. But there's that weird disconnect where it's like you've got this movie with a bunch of like CGI in it, but it doesn't look great, and it's not being shot in the right way, and we kind of push this craft forward in a way that you don't seem to be like utilizing here. And even my theory is there's just also is like an energy thing. When you are a young filmmaker, you have the kind of time and energy to obsess over every shot, and I can feel that in like a Jurassic Park, where every shot of the dinosaurs feels well considered, whereas like I didn't feel like there was an obsession put into the alien reveal shots. They felt very flat, just like here's a camera on the room. There's Colin Firth right there. There's the alien screaming, very clear, no mystery about it, even lighting. I want those alien, autopsy, creepy videos to like be shot in such a way that it does evoke that like primal fear and wonder and what the hell am I looking at ness. And they were all so crystal clear and so obviously fake that none of that was able to arise. And I do feel like there's just a level of just obsession that needs to go into crafting those images that I just wasn't sensing in this movie.
Yeah, and very quickly, just to riff on the thing about like this old style of filmmaking, is it makes me think of the legacy sequel conversation we've had before, which Disclosure Day feels like a legacy sequel in the same way like Napoleon feels like a legacy sequel, even though they're brand new movies. They feel
Ridley
like
Scott's another one.
Right. Like that's exactly what why I thought of him. It's like here's a filmmaker trying to do the thing they've always done, but they're doing it in the way they used to do it, and we kind of need you to do it in a new way, right? So it's something like Crystal Skull feels like, oh, you're trying to do a thing you did in the 80s, but you're still trying to do it the same way you did it then, and you're not trying to make a more modern movie.
And also you're doing it in the 80s way, but with like tons of CGI that is not kind of like carefully crafted. And so
you're not trying to make an 80s movie, you're trying to make a movie like you would, but then we have something like Blade Runner 2049, which is like, oh, the filmmaker is going to hand it down to someone younger and who is more of a modern director, and they're going to make something excellent because they're going to make the throwback thing in the new way, and that's sort of that secret sauce. Some people like George Miller can just do it. They can just make it. They can make the original Mad Max movies and then come out and make Fury Road and be like, I'm a 20-year-old director somehow, even though I'm 75 or whatever, right? But most people can't, and you end up with this sort of mishmashy kind of feeling.
Couple things. Thing number one is I do not want anybody listening to this, or at least I want to push back a little bit, because I do want our veteran filmmakers to continue making movies. And
Yes.
I am curious, and I'm curious about what they have to say. And they've lived a long time. They have wisdom. They have been in the business a very long time. And I think that they have interesting things to say often. Like, I've seen Scorsese's movies, all of them pretty much at this point. And even when they don't coalesce perfectly into like a modern movie, and even when they're an hour too long, they are still really rich for study. And I think this movie actually is worth studying also. So I don't want anybody listening to think that I at least am not suggesting that our elder filmmakers be put out to pasture. I do want them to continue working.
Yeah.
And I really like aspects of this movie. And I actually like it in some ways better than I like something like The Fabelmans, because I think The Fabelmans feel nostalgic in a way that isn't generous. And I think this does feel nostalgic, and it does feel a little bit dated, but still feels like it's actually more, a little bit less myopic and a little bit more hopeful and ultimately more generous to an audience than something like The Fabelmans. Like, I'm a little bit tired of hearing what these elder filmmakers have to say about Hollywood. I mean, and I think not that again, they can make whatever they want and I will go see it, I promise. But I like it when they're returning to topics that they've covered before, but they want to re-explore them. And with something like this, it's an original story. Like, I again experienced that same feeling. Some people have argued that it's a remake of a bunch of other stuff, or like a remix of a bunch of other stuff, and there are plenty of references here that it's drawing on. But I was a little bit refreshed by the topic, by the subject matter, and by some of the decisions that were made going into it. For example, one of the things that I would love to talk about more is the characters, because
Yes.
having just rewatched Close Encounters, I had very different reactions to those characters than I had to these ones. The characters here I find to be really fascinating in the way that they're kind of put together and what we come to find out about them and the journeys that they end up on. Even though it's similar to Close Encounters in these two strangers are affected by, a supernatural experience in ways they don't understand, and they're being drawn, to essentially the same point and to have to team up once they get there. That's really similar in some ways. But we know so much about these characters. We come to find out so much about Margaret and Daniel in this movie. And I love some of the dimensionality and the complication that are given to these characters. Everyone has said, and you too, Michael, that Emily Blunt is giving one of the best performances of her career in this movie. And she does have something to work with. It's not like it's a totally flat, dead, cold fish on a page. She actually has something to work with here in the character design. She's doing a voice, which I think is interesting. Like, when she's just being herself, she's kind of got this breathy, almost like a dumb bimbo voice that she's doing. And I like that. I think it works. It's like reinforcing this idea that she doesn't necessarily have book learning intelligence, an advanced degree. She's not a scientist or a physicist or anything like that. She's a weather reporter who has ambitions to be more, but has ultimately a much more important kind of intelligence that the movie is depicting. And I can't remember the last time I saw a character like that in a movie that was purposefully constructed to show us other kinds of intelligences that are valuable. And I love that. And I really like the design of Daniel. I really like the design of Jane as well. I think she's an interesting point, sort of third person in this movie. And the two government guys as well. Coleman Domingo's character. I need to look up their names again. But yeah, Hugo and Noah Scanlon. Yeah, Hugo and Scanlon. But yeah, I think that the character design is fascinating. And for all of the other like bumps that this story has, that's what kept me hooked into watching the movie, was watching what's going to happen with Margaret and Daniel and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to underline what you were saying. I don't want everyone to go and retire and die and not make movies anymore. I don't think that's the right takeaway. I do want to talk about this more in our Patreon episode, because I think this conversation around the evolution of film language and what the elder generation can learn and pass on is important and good. And I have some theories about ways of how you can do that. And part of it, I think, is maybe surrounding yourself with different people and like spreading your knowledge to newcomers and things like that. Like, honestly, this was the first time where I was like, John Williams, I don't know if that was the right call for the music.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So
very throwbacky. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do also like what you were saying, Trisha, about like the characters. And there was a moment where I was watching one of the scenes between, I don't remember their names, Jane and Josh O'Connor, where I was like, there is conflict. Like in every one of these scenes, like there is like that character wants something different than that character. It might not be unfolding as organically as I feel like it should in my head, but in every individual scene, there was conflict, there was change, there was a back and forth, there was some kind of evolution happening to it. And it was almost like, I felt this in Close Encounters a little bit too. This was like a series of set pieces put together that as a whole didn't totally feel like it was telling a story to me that was super cohesive, but like each individual set piece I think was interesting, and some I found super compelling, especially the like early on when we're getting ready to reveal what's on, the laptop and the footage. Like there was some cool buildup that was happening that was like, oh yeah, okay, this is Spielberg doing what like he's really good at. It's making me lean in. And like the train chase, even though it was like, really, there's another train coming, it was still fun to see that car chase set piece happen. It had like, it did feel
the invisible, the invisible things action sequence towards the end was blast.
Goofy.
Yeah.
Goofy, but a blast.
But fun.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
It reminded me of classic Spielberg staging a cool, like, had a concept and like executing it and really having fun with it.
Yeah. And I think to me that this movie didn't feel lazy or tired, actually. Like, I think that is a concern sometimes with, as you get older, you have less energy. But there were certain set pieces where I was like, you made it harder on yourself than you needed to. And you like,
that's a very good point.
To do it. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to call those things out as like, I think there are like good elements in here and like basics that were being like followed and well executed on. I think it was just, as it was all strung together as a whole, it was sort of falling down for me.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing with artists in general is you get known by making a certain kind of thing because that's where your heart and head are at that time in your life. But then people are like, oh, you're good at that. Keep making that thing. And then now it's 30 years later and people are like, but you should make that thing you used to make. And you're like, but that's not where I am right now. Don't get me wrong. I think Spielberg very much wanted to make this movie. But I do think it's that like part of me is like, I want to see the post, but disclosure. Right. Like I want to see like a movie set in an office, but it's alien stuff and like they're whatever, And I think that so I think there's an interesting other thing here where it's not that I want these filmmakers to stop making movies at all. It's I wonder sometimes if they should be making different movies, but then they are expected because you are Ridley Scott, you are Steven Spielberg, you are whoever, you're expected to make a certain kind of movie, which means your movie has to have all these ingredients that maybe aren't what you wanted to put in there in the first place. Again, this is his story. I'm sure this is the movie he wanted to tell. That's just sort of a general thinking I have about musicians and movies is that feeling like you're sometimes forcing something because that's what's expected of you. And that's just on my mind, especially with people who've been making things for several decades.
Yeah. I mean, I do think this movie is the one he wanted to make. I mean, he originated this movie by sending kind of a stream of consciousness treatment to David Koepp and going back and forth, and he was like, "Hey, it's your problem now. Write the screenplay."
Right.
And so I think, and that's they go way back to Jurassic Park and his same DP and John Williams. I'm sure there's many other people on the crew that are his crew. You had a really interesting statement earlier, Michael, of what would it be like for Steven Spielberg to surround himself with some of the best new talent in the industry to create this movie? What would that, there's obviously growing pains that come with like not using your like tried and true crew where you have the second hand language already ready to go. So obviously there's like a trade-off there. But I wonder what kind of movie could have emerged from not just the same old crew from 30 years ago, but actually some new perspectives and some new ways of looking at the world.
On the other hand, one of the things that I liked most about the movie, in addition to the characters, was how unembarrassed it was. Like you described feeling embarrassed for him. I don't think he would ever feel embarrassed. I think younger filmmakers tend to feel like they have something to lose. And so they might be more cautious, or they might be like cooler, right? Or try to be like cool or trendy, or again, like turn down their level of passion or overall like earnestness. And I think Spielberg has never worried about that, or hasn't often worried about that when he was younger, but the movies were a different thing then. But now I feel like you might not get some of the like earnestness of this if you had younger people making it. There might be something that would want to be more restrained or cynical ultimately. Like one thing I like about this movie is that it isn't cynical. Yes, have I seen the existence of aliens can stop World War III in a movie before? I have. But is that still a really hopeful idea? Yes. It's very on the nose, but the last word of the movie being listen. And just like, again, it's like, did you get the empathy? Did you get about the listening? I honestly wondered at one point how much of the runtime was Emily Blunt just looking at people. I was like, I think it's like a decent chunk of like Emily Blunt's just going to stare really hard at somebody. It's a pretty decent amount of the runtime.
One person at a time is going to come in to the other people are going to stand around like NPCs in like a 2005 video game, just wait for their turn to come up and be like, oh, I see.
Yeah, totally. And that sequence is really interesting, and maybe I can come back to it for my lesson. But I think that there's something here that feels so urgent, and like he has a message. He wants to say his message, and he doesn't really care if it's like the cool thing to say right now. I also like the pacing of it. It's a lot. It's 2.5 hours long, and it ultimately is kind of a series of like chases and escapes, but there are moments where it really slows down. And the thing that I was thinking about most is how it gives the performances room to breathe. And those moments, like aside from when that sequence we just mentioned where like the actual literal people that she's channeling there's just random actors that she's now becoming, I guess. But other than that, her abilities are not really portrayed with like big bombastic special effects or something. It's this quiet power that she really has by looking at somebody. And it is nice to just let your imagination fill those silences and think about what it is. Because Emily Blunt's doing so much in like the micro expressions that she's making, and just like somehow inside of her eyeballs, way deep back in her brain, something is changing me when I'm watching her. And I think it's nice to let Josh O'Connor's character Daniel, it's nice to just kind of sit with them for longer like moments and beats in those action sequences. I think other younger directors might rush them, might approach them in a more conventional action sequence way. And Spielberg is going to take his time with them because he understands that the character journey is the only thing that we're going to care about here. And again, I was not, like when you actually boil down the events of the plot, I don't know if you have a 2.5 hour movie. And I normally complain about things being too long, but because the movie is about what it's about, and because the actors are bringing everything they're bringing to it, I don't mind staring at them for that long. And I think that you get that from a more experienced filmmaker who understands what's happening in the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to agree that I want more optimistic stories. I don't want more cynical stories. And I do, again, if we're giving out bonus points, those would be some of the bonus points that I would give to this movie. It's like, I like that it's aiming for unabashed empathy as a superpower. Everyone listen, like all of that I think is good. And I do want to encourage that. And I want to, you said the word imagination just a moment ago. I want to flag that. I want to start our Patreon episode talking about the role of imagination in filmmaking, because I was thinking about that a lot in Close Encounters, but I didn't have the word for it. And I think that's the word. And I want to talk about that. Okay, well, why don't we move to like lessons? What lessons are we going to take away from Disclosure Day? Brian, I always like to start with you. I'm continuing that trend.
Like the opening act. This movie reminded me, I think, that when action feels like it's just there to be action, Trisha wrote a lovely lessons from the screenplay video about the opening sequence of Casino Royale, where it's like all the action is telling you who this character is, and the kind of work that it's doing. And I think, there's the like Skype call, Colin Firth, Agent Smith, sequences, which are really, one, novel, and two, tense and interesting in a lot of ways. And they are in some ways kind of, I don't know that they're dealing with the theme as much as you see who the characters are against each other sort of being represented, as opposed to guys in black cars running after people, right? Person has thing, people don't want person to have thing, so people chase person. And I'm just like, okay. And I think I'm just reminded in this movie that because a lot of time it feels like the movie doesn't know what it's really trying to say at any given time. It feels like, especially when some of those sequences are there, they're just there to be there because it's time for an action sequence. And I would love a version of this where, again, as Alex was saying, like if this is your big finale at the very end, then I want to see the movie that builds towards that finale, and some of these big action set pieces, which are there for a lot of this movie, are in some way speaking to that, in some way showing you what the characters are doing, what the theme is about, whatever, and not just bad guys closing in the movie. And I feel like that is part of what made this movie feel a little rudderless to me, was how much of it was just this sort of chase thing, and the chase thing, like, what is any one action scene doing? Oh, all it's doing is entertaining you and showing how these people got away from those people. Okay, is that really enough for your movie to be doing for 6-8 minutes, whatever it is? And I've become an old person where 13-year-old me would like go pee during the talking stuff and then come back for the action sequences. Now I'm like, the action sequences aren't actually doing anything in this movie, so I can skip that and get to the part where the movie is doing the stuff the movie is about. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy them, and it doesn't mean them being there for entertainment isn't fine. But this movie, it's like, in my memory at least, this movie is a bunch of sort of like meaningless action that is couching what the movie is actually trying to be about, which then has very little time to exist because of all the other stuff the movie is trying to do in order to be a big blockbuster, which is why I'm like, what is the post version of this movie? What is the dialogue only version of like disclosing information about aliens, or network or something, right? And that's not what this movie's trying to be. But point is, I was just reminded that action, it's great when action can actually do more than just be there to entertain and check a box.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because there are some sequences in this where I feel like the spectacle was enough that I was like, okay, we're doing a spectacle like sequence right now. But I think part of what was awkward for me is that there were also action, quote unquote, scenes where that spectacle was like missing or lacking a little bit. Like anytime the fight was against Colin Firth holding the stick really hard to telepathically control the girl to stab the guy for reasons. Anyway, some of this is in my lesson, but I feel like it was also elucidating to me the difference between like high spectacle action that can kind of stand on its own and stuff that needed more of that character or more. I'm just going to roll into my lesson actually, because this is basically what it is, which is like rules. And we talk about that a lot, and I was struggling to understand the rules of this world and this alien technology, and was sort of frustrated at the end when it's a magic stick and it'll do whatever you want it to do. Eventually, there's sort of a slow build up in the first half of the movie of, that's what Josh O'Connor's stolen, I think, and they're after it. And then when he's walking away with it, they're like, oh no, don't, be careful, you're going to squeeze it too hard, which I think is also a really hard thing to dramatize visually.
Yeah,
It's hard for me to be like, oh, is he squeezing it too hard? I don't know. So I feel like there was some execution stuff there, but it was like, what does it do? And then we sort of slowly get to see that somehow let's Colin Firth see through somebody else's eyes and then ultimately kind of control them like a robot. But also if you squeeze it too hard, you disappear and then come back. But also Emily Blunt uses it to repower the building after the power gets turned off. So it's sort of at some point it's it will do what the plot needs it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's frustrating, but can work in the right setting and in a movie that has magic to it. And I feel like this movie does have magic in it, but also kind of wants to feel science-y and rooted in our reality. It is the alien grays from, Roswell. It is. And I feel like that was part of this tonal thing that was really throwing me. Is am I scared? Is this a thriller? How worried am I supposed to be about these characters? And if you want me to be worried, I don't know what I can be worried about because I don't know what the rules are with this magical device that's underpinning all of this. Anyway, so having clear rules helps with suspense and tension in scenes where it's if you're going to use this weapon, I need to know what it can do and what it can't do and what I'm actually worried about, and not just kind of waiting until the end to, reverse understand what I just watched, kind of a thing.
Uh-huh.
It really strikes me that it's a case where constraints can be generative for story. So if this stick is a connect with other people's brains stick, that can be used for good or ill. You can connect to people's brains and control them, make them do things against their will, or you can connect with them and have a shared experience of empathy. It could be, this stick is about connecting with other consciousnesses, and it can be amplified or tuned or pointed whatever direction. And then that once again could build to the ending I proposed, which is somehow Emily Blunt's been given the power to mass connect in a way. But if you kind of limited it to that power only, then you have the rules that you're saying, Michael. So it's this thing, to more or less degree, depending on the wielder, can control people around you or spread empathy connection with people around you. And it's two binary powers. Every set piece is based around that. So it's about being controlled or reaching out or whatever, and then it culminates in an ending where Emily Blunt uses it in the good way.
Mm-hmm.
Versus a stick that can also let you make everybody invisible in a room, or like you said, put the power back on. So then it becomes just a magic stick versus a embodiment of the theme, or whatnot. So there are some things here where I think if they were just tweaked a little bit and made clearer and had those constraints, they could have built to something that felt more earned, maybe.
Yeah. This is all kind of related to my lesson, which is about what does it mean for a movie to be grounded? Basically, when you're dealing with science fiction, and some of these, fantasy, some of these genres that are pretty out there, but even when you're just making a movie that's a drama or comedy or whatever, I think we sometimes talk about what it feels like when something is grounded versus when it isn't. And one of the scenes that I really like in this movie is the one where they finally get onto the train and Emily Blunt's character, Margaret, has a panic attack. And she's just, it's kind of a longish little scene of her freaking out and Josh O'Connor's character, trying to get through to her. And and to me, it anchors so much of the second half of the movie and those characters. And I find I care so much about them because they have this really human response. She has this incredible, she's basically been given a superpower, and she's been wielding that superpower now for half an hour of the movie, pretty invincibly. And even when we see these moments where she's I don't know what's going on, this is totally crazy, she still is essentially behaving like the protagonist of a movie would. And when she has this sort of panic attack, she's behaving like a normal person, right? Where if you had just been through this experience and jumped onto a train and all this stuff, people try to kill you, you would probably just freak out for a while. Why is that boxcar full of pianos? I don't know. I was looking at that. I was like, expensive production design for a boxcar. Why did we pick pianos? I'm sure it's thematic. I'll give you a minute. It'll come to me what the symbolism is there.
I
But
kind of thought they were going to play the da, 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 da,
or something
on the
like,
piano.
Strings being plucked is something about.
or something in her mind powers was going to like play. Who knows? Whatever. But anyway, so there's that scene, and I think it feels really grounded and really lovely, and it does a lot of work in that relationship too between those two characters. Then you have scenes like the one where she's becoming the loved ones of all the people on the base, and we're seeing them. And then once they have an encounter with their loved one, they just walk away, I guess. And they're walking up one at a time to her. And then at the end of that sequence, Colin Firth Scanlon goes, "My God, what is she?" And then Boyd goes, "Unstoppable." And he like goes to get his car.
That's right.
Inevitable.
That was definitely a low point of the film.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
no.
There's a moment at the end of that where it cuts to she's kind of, it's like a wider shot and she's making eye contact with everybody. And I was like, oh, I understand now. Towards the end of the scene, you're messaging that she is kind of like doing it to everybody at once. But that's at the end of the scene. The front is one person at a time, like standing in line to come up to grab her. You know, it's so weird.
Well, and earlier, when she breaks into the trailer, there's a moment where she looks right at Scanlon, and you know she's his wife, which is goofy. But then it could just be then he tells everybody not to mess with her, right?
Right.
Like, why couldn't it just be that like he orders everyone to let them go or whatever? Like because he's so affected by that experience. I don't know. It just seems like it would be easier instead of her having to like do her brain trick on her empathy brain trick on everyone.
I think that moment sounds cool on paper. And then you film it and you're like, oh wait, how do you do this?
Well, and so this goes back to what I was going to say about things feeling grounded, is that there has to be an internal logic, right?
Right.
And people have to behave like people essentially. And there's no internal logic to how her power is working. What is everybody experiencing in the moment? And this makes me totally insane. And I've seen it in so many movies and read it in so many scripts. When there's not a rational explanation being offered by people for whatever supernatural thing they've experienced. The first reaction when you've encountered something supernatural that a human would have is whatever logical thing you want to say to make it make sense to yourself, right? Even if it's like, I got hit on the head and now I'm experiencing delusions. That's a reasonable thing you could say to yourself. When she faints, when she's in the hospital, I find that really affecting, where they're like, what, your dad had Parkinson's. Like, at what point did that come on? And I'm like, this is grounded. Like, this is what you would be thinking if you had this supernatural experience. But then we go from there to these other scenes where there's no internal logic to it whatsoever. And no one is saying like, this is some kind of super weapon. This is some kind of hallucinogenic thing. This is science.
Including the finale of this movie,
that.
where, as we said, people are watching videos and just going, I guess this is all real.
I guess this is it. I accept the disclosure now. So yeah, just thinking about like in some moments this movie does feel grounded, and it really moved me. And then in other moments it just feels like it has no grounding whatsoever. The CGI animals don't look good and never have. I just want to say, like, in
There's
no
never
movie,
really been a good one.
No,
Right.
so don't do it, everybody. We used to have real animals in movies. Like you could have gotten a fox. It actually wouldn't have
They've
been
done it
impossible
before.
to just like have a fox.
They're not doing
up.
backflips. They're just like walking.
They're just walking. Get a deer. Like it's crazy to me. Just because get a dog, get a cat. Like these are very trainable, gettable, real animals you could get. And again, just going back to like, so there are things that make a movie feel grounded, and there are things that don't. And so I'm not saying that the special effects are a huge part of the problem about why this doesn't feel grounded, but that alien abduction sequence, like, I'm really affected when I see the children, like looking at the mobile of the Cardinals and looking out their window in wonder. I'm affected by the images of the children's faces. I'm not, because that's grounded. That feeling that I'm seeing is real. The wonder is real on the actors' faces. What they're looking at does not feel real and grounded to me. And that's, I think, part of the problem that we have. So this movie both feels grounded and not grounded, and is probably worth studying for identifying when it does and when it doesn't.
Yeah. I feel like in some ways that's kind of an overall theme that I feel like has emerged, is this movie has examples of great ways to do things and bad ways to do
Right.
things,
Yep.
wielded differently at different times. And it's, ripe for study.
Yep.
Alex, what's your lesson?
You mentioned earlier, Michael, one particular maybe Spielberg oneer that didn't hit you the right way because there was some awkward blocking that felt too put upon. But I have to say, I really did like the oneer at the news studio when she is first experiencing her kind of like savant abilities coming online. That summed up for me like what was working about this movie, which was there is that Spielberg lightness and kind of love and sweetness about Spielberg as a person, I think, and what he projects through his movies. That unembarrassed empathy and kind of joy, and it was really lovely to see that sequence where this character Margaret, she is like in this flow state of like helping people and communicating with people and capturing that in a oneer, I think was important because it kind of kept you with this breathless experience she's having where this words are pouring out of her and she just knows what to say and she knows how to speak Korean, and it was just really cool. And so I thought that was a great example of like, this is what you have a Spielberg oneer for. It's for this performance. It's for this situation where somebody's experiencing this kind of unbroken flow state. And it was, I think, as you were saying, Michael or whoever, just like that is the thing where I'm happy Spielberg made this movie how he makes his movies, because that is a very special Spielberg thing. And I don't know if other, younger, more cool, more cynical directors would do a performance and a oneer and a thing quite like that. It was that just really like I'm really just kind of happy watching this because of that joy and freedom and fun of it all. It wasn't taking itself overly seriously, but it was also really well performed, really well executed, masterfully, blocked, shot, everything. And there's a lightness there that I don't see many other directors hitting in this genre. And there's something really refreshing about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, that language is, as you're saying, conveying the kind of mental state of the character. Like it's doing lots of work. It's fun to look at. It's telling the story. And the sort of breeziness, how like she's moving through how like the way she's reacting to this thing that's happening to her, we are feeling because of that filmmaking. And I feel like, it's all just working in synergy, which is really nice.
And part of the lightness is just an embrace of humor as well, and sight gags. Like she has the makeup bib on for a lot of it, and just appreciating just like the natural, normal humor of being a human in everyday life, and not issuing that to be like this very serious like sci-fi thing happening to her now. Like no goofiness, no like human frailty. It's like no, it's like Spielberg lets us kind of be smiling and almost like laughing along as this thing is happening, and it feels right. It doesn't feel wrong.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, there's more to say about Spielberg and all of this, which we will say shortly over on Patreon. But until then, what else have you guys been watching? Trisha, what have you been watching recently?
Oh my God, you picked me first. I've been watching a lot of things, actually.
It's been a minute, yeah.
I know, it has been. The thing I need to talk about first, because it's what I'm most excited about right now, is The Lowdown. I've been watching The Lowdown, which is a show about Ethan Hawke, who plays an investigative journalist, essentially, but he's like sort of an accidental detective. He actually owns a rare bookstore in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is modern day. It has a great like 70s noir-y, rural thriller kind of vibe to it. Or really it almost feels like a stoner detective movie in some ways. It's great. The supporting cast is amazing. Keith David is there. Kyle MacLachlan plays like the mayoral candidate or the governor candidate in the town. Jeanne Tripplehorn, who I love, is in this. She's really crushing it. I just saw an episode that had a guest appearance by Graham Greene, who I'm always thrilled to see. It was one of his last roles. So yeah, it's really. I don't want to give away any of the other guest star cameos from the first season, but I'm just having a blast with it. It's exactly my kind of show. There's enough mystery to it to keep it really engaging, but there's some great character work that's being done. And it's really funny. It's really thrilling. It's a good twisty mystery. And yeah, a lot of specificity to the world and to the characters, which I always love. So yeah, really enjoying The Lowdown. I think I'm watching it on my Disney Plus, but it's probably Hulu, but you can check it out over there.
Nice. That sounds cool. Excited to watch that. Alex, what have you been watching?
I went and saw Backrooms. Speaking of,
Ooh.
age of directors.
Oh no.
No.
Do you know how old the director of this movie is?
19.
20 years old.
Oh,
Terrifying.
29. Okay.
He was probably 19 while he was making it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kane
Oh.
Parsons,
Oh.
also known as Kane Pixels, or is it Parsons or
Yeah, Kane
Parsons.
Pixels is YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, Kane Pixels is his YouTube name. All the Gen Zs and younger already knew about Backrooms from this viral YouTube sensation. And man, I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't know what to expect. It was A24 kind of artsy horror film. Cool, I'm down for that. But you could feel a fresh vision from someone who grew up in just a different digital context than even we grew up in. You can feel like the video game spatial awareness coming through in this like movie it's basically, I've heard it described as a horror movie where architecture is the like horror. The unnerving architecture of this endless space, the Backrooms, is like most of the horror of the movie. And there's just something about the way it's shot and staged and these kind of found footage sequences, the way they unfold. It's just, it was really fresh in a way that I haven't felt in a while. So I don't know if it's a movie for everybody, but I would just recommend it broadly because it did feel like a very fresh new vision. And I had a great time. I thought it was just a really cool experience. So, and it is scary. It does have some pretty tense, scary, creepy parts. But it's not like a gory movie. It's just a creepy movie. The actors are great. I'm always scared to say his name. I'm going to say it wrong. Yeah, Chiwetel Ejiofor. He like rarely gets the chance to just be like the focus of a film. He's great in so many supporting roles, but he gets to really shine here as the protagonist, the main actor carrying the film, and I really enjoyed his performance. So many reasons I think to give Backrooms a chance. It's doing extremely well. It's like a huge box office, which is really cool. It just shows like, there's an audience for this kind of new vision that is just a new experience that you haven't had before. So Backrooms.
Renata Renciv from Worst Person in the World and Sentimental Value.
Yes. She's also wonderful. Yeah. Nice. Mark Duplass shows up. He's
of course he does.
He's great. So Backrooms is it's a movie that like, I mean, don't go into it with any particular expectations besides just you're going to have an experience, and it's an interesting new experience in my opinion.
Cool. All
right. Brian, what have you been watching?
I wanted Alex to go first because I wasn't sure if he would say what mine was. I saw the other horror movie of the moment. Obsession. Yep. And I loved it. It is very intense and shocking and goes to places that if you do not have the stomach for places that things can go, do not see this movie. But it, The premise, if you haven't seen the trailer, is boy likes girl, boy makes wish that she loves him more than anything in the world, and then the movie grants him the wish and takes it to as far an extreme of a place as it possibly can. What the trailer doesn't say, but the movie reveals pretty early on, and I'll say it here, so skip forward if you really want to know nothing, but I think it made me way more compelled by the movie once I realized this, is that like her personality still exists inside this like shell that is this sort of it's almost like she's being possessed by this character who is obsessed with the guy, but like her real person is still in there and like every once in a while can like communicate or get out. There's one scene where she is sleeping but then like her mouth starts talking and she's like, she's asleep, so I can talk to you now or whatever. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so much more interesting to me than the movie where she just is obsessed with him and that's it. Right. So that's a really interesting thing the movie does. And it reminded me of a horror movie that I really liked recently, Together, with Dave Franco and Alison Brie. And I feel like that's a movie about people who are so joined at the hip, they become literally joined at the hip, essentially. And but I just feel like just like I love a horror movie that knows what it's about and like the theme that it chooses to be about. That's what the entire movie is, like a tight 90 minutes, and there's no side stories where people are running around doing this other thing. It's just like, here's the thing we want to talk about, and the entire movie is about that thing. Again, certain people, 2/3 of you included, are not going to see this movie, and that's fine. So like, don't see this movie if it's not something, not something you're interested in. But I really love. I just think horror is one of these genres we have right now where it can just pick a theme and just the whole movie can be about it. We also have horror that feels very artsy and da 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 right now, wherever it's like too many ideas and it's not really clear what's going on or why this means this. But Session is one of these movies where like literally everything is based on this one idea, and I think it makes for just a stronger theme and a stronger movie.
Thanks. I am happy for it and you.
Yep.
And I feel like it was great to hear about it.
Yeah. I wasn't talking
Thanks for sharing.
to either of you.
Yeah.
Got you, Brian.
Yeah.
Michael, what are you watching?
Well, yeah. So to continue on the twist on horror theme, Widow's Bay is what I've been watching and obsessed with, and I keep telling everyone about. I heard it first from Vince, our producer, who I just went back to read how he described it initially because I've been having trouble describing it, and he called it spooky, cozy, fun. And I'm like, yeah, it's like a cozy horror show. And the weirdness that sound, the face that you made, Trisha,
that sounds
me try.
bad.
Yeah, I don't want that actually.
Yeah, it's what I feel like. It is a fresh genre mashup in my eyes that I think is hard to describe because I haven't seen anything like it before. And I just found it absolutely delightful. Like, it just finished. It's on Apple TV. The cast is great. Matthew Rhys, who apparently has been in other stuff. I thought he was like, oh, they cast like an unknown for the starring role. Apparently he's been in like everything.
You know Matthew Rhys?
No, I'd never seen him before in my life. I don't know.
Wild.
In so many shows.
Stephen Root is in it.
Yeah.
He's
Nice.
great as always. And then Kate O'Flynn, who you've seen surely in like different things, is like, I feel like the breakout star role.
Yeah.
She has such a quirky, great character, executed like immaculately. The writing is just really smart. Like, one of the things we talked about when we talked about Get Out is that I like protagonists in horror movies that are smart and do things like in a grounded way that like, what would I do in the situation? Do I walk into danger like an idiot, or do I try to do something smart? Characters in the show do smart things or relatable things or grounded things, but the show still finds a way to make the horror and the spookiness apply, especially early on in the season. It feels like kind of every episode they're kind of in conversation with different like tropes in the horror genre. You know, a little bit like Stephen King-y and a little bit The Shining, Final Girl, twist on that and how that works. Like there's just a lot of really fun, smart, well-observed things that's also telling a quirky, funny, heart-filled story that's also kind of spooky and almost like Stranger Things-y in a way that makes you want to know what's going on with the world. So I don't know how to accurately describe it. I just kind of gush at people until I wear them down with it. But I absolutely loved it. Katie Dippold, the writer, Hiro Murai, directed a lot of the episodes, so the cinematography is
It's a big selling point
gorgeous.
for me.
The
Yeah.
directing is gorgeous.
There's an episode
It's-
directed by T. West, which feels like an A24. It feels like The Witch or something, the way it's shot. And then I was like, oh, you literally hired an A24 director to make this episode.
there's I don't know. Anyway, I think it's great. It's one of the things that I've been most excited about that's come out in a long time, and it's just really fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, what is
I feel like we need a word for. I think when you say comedy, you think something that is making jokes all the time, and
Right.
this
Because
is
I don't want like a jokey horror
which
show.
is not
No,
what
no,
this
that's
is
no.
at all. This is a
Yeah.
show that is allowed to be funny whenever it decides to be funny, like Die Hard or something. Do you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't call Die Hard a comedy, but you'd call it like a
You may.
movie that's funny a lot of the time.
The comedy is like rooted in the characters. They're not
Gotcha,
like
gotcha.
making
Right.
jokes.
It's not a
Okay.
gag where it's like that ghost like bumped into the thing because they can't pass through that wall.
Yeah.
Like
No, it's not.
No, but it will
scary
be
movie.
like the ghost comes in and it's a big dramatic moment, and then like the character will bump into a thing because that's exactly what their character would do in that moment.
Right,
Do you know what I mean?
right,
So
right.
every once in a while,
Right.
it robs itself of its own creepiness by being funny, but it generally,
But it's
to me,
character based.
Yeah, generally works really well for me, at least.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I loved it. And I think it keeps it from being too scary for that reason,
Right.
too. Like,
It's
it
like
takes
creepy,
you to
but
the
it's
brink.
not scary.
Yeah. Anyway, I liked it a lot. Cool. Okay. Well, so this has been our conversation about Disclosure Day. As I have said many times, we're going to continue this conversation over on Patreon, dive into more of the Spielberginess and the role of imagination and, the language of storytelling and kind of wherever else the conversation takes us. So if you want to listen to that episode and help us make more episodes, head to the Beyond Screenplay Patreon to support us. I want to say thank you to the patrons that do make this show possible. We very much love you. Thank you. Thank you to our producer, Vince Major. I'm Michael Tucker, and I'm joined today by Trisha Rand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Listen, I guess.
Bye.